in. As I had earlier mentioned, we have our reporters on ground, and therefore they'll be painting a picture of what plays out. So on this conversation, Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, Member of Parliament of course, Ndaragwa, joins us this morning, and also a key leader in the Mount Kenya region, joins us for this particular conversation. Virtually, we have Honorable Joash Maangi, Deputy Governor of Kisii County as well. We'll be having Honorable Farah Maalim joining us later. But gentlemen, first, let's look at the aspect of students going back to school. I know there's really nothing much because it's what we've been talking about the better part of last week. But here we are, the COVID-19 menace. We still are not able to tame this, even as we let loose of our students to schools.
And a good morning to our viewers this morning, and my appreciation for having been invited to the studios once again this morning. I of course want to wish our young people well in school. I know there are a lot of difficulties. The traveling itself alone is stressful, leave alone the cost of the travel, and even the ability or inability of our parents to afford the cost of getting our young people back to school. These are difficulties that we must appreciate many Kenyans are going through this morning. And of course now, this COVID thing, even as you deal with all the other issues at the back of your mind, you are worried about the security, the health status of your children once they are back to school. And I'm sure it is a concern not just to the parents. One is a concern to us also as readers, and without doubt a concern to the government. I'm sure the government that was weighed which way out, which is a better, for lack of a better word, evil to deal with. And I think the crucial thing here is that we are in a state of affairs where you can't say what will be like tomorrow. And we have to wake up. It's not just Kenya. Every country in the world, if you go through the international news, you can see everybody is struggling with this new spike and how to deal with it. Certainly one of the better ways to deal with it is the vaccination. The vaccination seems to tame it in a way that those who have been vaccinated, even if they are getting the disease, the recovery rate is much higher,
right? Almost
to 100%. So I think what we need to do as a country is to struggle and work hard to get our own vaccinated as soon as possible in adequate numbers or in good numbers. And I think it is also important to appreciate the efforts that were made by our president when he was in the UK. If it is true that he was able to secure 9 million jabs, that's going to take us, going to help us cover quite some ground. But we have to appeal to everybody to ensure that the protocols as given to us by the government from time to time are adhered to. Kwa kizungu, kwa Kiswahili usipuuze hata kidogo.
That's true.
And especially the teachers, especially, and also the parents. When the children are back home, you cannot keep them away, but you need to take care of yourself also. Even as we're handling our children, a very difficult thing, but we can only rely on that aspect of what we are told to do, let us do it. But also as a nation, let us be prepared that we can always be told to take another turn.
That's true.
We could be told that we are back to the lockdown. We could be told that the curfew has been increased. We could be told that the schools may not need to go on for another week. We must now be ready for all these quick decisions, because to tame it, it's not going to be easy. And we must appreciate that nobody has a solution. Lakini Mwenyezi Mungu
we cross fingers for that. And as captured on page 10, the front page and then page 10 of the Daily Nation, the world risks losing COVID-19 gains globally. Cases have increased by about 80%. Honorable Joash Maangi, if you can hear us, good morning. And just to weigh in on the aspect of students going back to school at a point where the biggest worry is on how we are able to tame the spread of COVID-19. And you realize that it's actually not a problem with the country as we'd want to point fingers, but it's a global problem that we risk to lose the gains that we have made in dealing with COVID-19, because reality is that the cases have increased by about 80% as of today.
Linda, first and foremost, let me say good morning to all of you. And let me join my friend Kioni in wishing our pupils, our students well as back to school today. First and foremost, Linda, this is new for all of us. Students normally the change in terms is a new thing, and it's causing a lot of confusion. We hope that the students will catch up and get used to these new terms. Now, Linda, one thing all of us must accept and appreciate is that COVID is a reality. And COVID is going to be here with us for a long time to come. We must be prepared to live by it, to live with it, but most importantly, we must be prepared to follow the protocols as set out by the rules. And the protocols are very simple. Number one, let us keep our distances. Number two, let us wash our hands. Number three, let us wear our masks. If we obey these three, I think we will be safe. But most importantly also, let us make sure that we vaccinate. If they say if you are vaccinated, you stand a chance of being immunized to 70 to 80%. It's not 100%, you're not 100% safe, but you're 70 to 80% safe. COVID is a reality. Let us be careful. Even as we send our students to school, let us remind them that while in school, let them stick to the protocols.
All right. Okay, there you go. As we stick to the protocols, Mheshimiwa, briefly as we leave this aside,
yes.
You mentioned that we should be ready for anything, but the biggest fear that we have today is that politically then this can be used as a tool to alter, the calendar of politics in the country. And therefore, how do we trust the government that in whatever reports we'll be receiving, in whatever, actions the government will be taking as to COVID-19 in the country, then it will not be used in any way to alter the political calendar of the day?
I think, in fact, I'm going through this page 10 of the Daily Nation. I see that we are talking of Delta variant.
Yes.
So there's already another one, the Lambda or something, the Lambda, which has been detected in South America, in other places.
Yep.
And so we are talking of one thing today, and tomorrow is another
different thing.
Yeah. And that's why I'm saying you need to be fair to yourself. If you want to, let me tell you, we were in Kiamba doing campaigns.
Yes.
In the by-election, as directed by IBC. And we tried as much as we could to observe the protocols.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether I'll be correct, but I think after we left, there was a spike.
There was a spike. Kiambu is terrible as it now.
So, what is it that you're asking me, Reed? You try a small political activity, and it is a spike.
Right.
And it's not the politics, it is the issue of bringing people together.
But the irony is that we still have these politicians.
We have to have some trust somewhere.
Okay.
And if you cannot trust your own government in managing this, we will go down the road like some other countries have done, and they have ended up really dealing with some very, undesirable consequences.
Right.
And a case in point is like a country in India. It got to a point where we had nothing to say.
That's true.
I mean, would you ever want to get that kind of a situation in a country?
Certainly not.
So it doesn't matter whether it is politics, whether it is whatever it is. The most important thing is to ensure that we save lives. So I am not going to sit here and say that I am going to hold the government in suspicion.
Okay.
When we are managing this, I am sure, and that but of course we have to be careful so that this is not mismanaged. But remember what people said. Those who don't want to support anything that they think is useful. When this COVID thing struck, There was a clear statement from some of the political leaders saying this is a ploy by the government to get donor funding.
That's true.
Where are we today? I mean, so I think it is really, it will be very naive of us as leaders not to wake up to that reality and work together. I have said this before, and I want to say it again, that this thing is scary enough.
Okay.
If you have, we have to know how to do things, including carrying out our campaigns, political campaigns, in this kind of an environment. Yeah. Things have completely changed. Okay. But, and that's why I'm saying we must be ready to just take the corner. And you know, even look at democracies like in the US, which believe in the freedom of movement, of expression, of you have your control of yourself. Yep. And they are told, yes, you have the freedom, it's your freedom, but we want you to have a mask. Some are going to court. You can't even tell me how to clothe, how to, what to wear and what not to wear. It's just my freedom. But it gets to a point where you also realize the law or the laws that we put in place are useful to us when there is order and things are held constant things are normal. Right. When things become abnormal, you would expect very many abnormal things being done and said. All right. And that is the reality of life. The other phase we had not paid attention to. Okay. I want to say this. We had already, for the last maybe 30 years, what was there was my right, my freedom, right, my everything. I have control over my, you cannot get near me. And that we were used to that kind of life until this thing hit. And we realized somebody must tell us how to behave, and we must, without a law being passed by parliament of any country, people just quickly listen and say, you are the professional in this area, you are the scientist, we do not want to die. How do you help us not to die? So we've kept our rights, our freedoms aside, and this is going to continue for a while. Of course, we have to be careful. We do not want anybody to take advantage of that unfortunate situation. All right.
Apparently, today you realize that almost all the stories that have been captured are captured across that in regards also to the Olympics that are going on in Tokyo. And we can only wish our men and women nothing but the best as we hope that they bring the glory home. Well, politics has taken center stage across all the papers and that conversation of students going back to school. And so we delve deep a bit and look at this report as captured on the Daily Nation, that is on page 6, in regards to a report by the Auditor General. Money also used to meet the cost of organizing meetings of party organs at the national level. You know, Auditor General raises queries as to the party funds and how they have been used. And parties are on the spot of a misuse of funds. Huge chunks used to pay rent and staff salaries instead of promoting democracy. What do you make of this, Honorable Joash Maangi? And I'm also told that Honorable Farah Maalim, who's the former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, is on standby. Before we go to him, what do you make of this? Just what goes into party funding? We all understand the problems that have been there in NASA coalition, which you've been part and parcel, of. You realize that, as it is well said here, it is never an issue of promoting democracy, but all these monies are channeled towards misuse. And we do not overlook the aspect that we still have members contributing to the coffers or to the kitty of the parties.
Linda, the concept of party funding is new to Kenya, and I must admit that a lot of parties do not know what to do with the funds they get from the exchequer. In the developed democracies, when parties get funds from the exchequer, these funds are used for direct promotion of democracy. They are used to go into, for example, civic education. Right. They are also used to take people for educational tours so that they can understand how other parties work. But in Kenya, unfortunately, when a party gets money, its interest first and foremost to employ more people so that it can reward those who campaign for it during the campaigns. Number two is to try and, line their pockets with the money. So I want to agree with Auditor General that our parties are misusing funds. These funds are meant to promote democracy. These funds are meant to promote civic education, not just pay salaries. Because when we're paying salaries, as a portion of it should be used for paying salaries, but a bigger portion should be used for promoting democracy, civic education, and a general awareness.
All right. Okay. Honorable Farah Maalim, just what is happening right now in regards to what ODM had said they will offer the other NASA, principals or the other NASA affiliate parties in regards to the funding. I know there's been a squabble for quite a while, and just last week they had agreed that they're going to share some chunk to the rest of the parties within the NASA coalition. But then the very same week, there was a declaration that NASA is no more. What plays out in such a scenario?
Well, I don't know. It all depends on how ODM is going to, how they decide to distribute those funds. And if they choose to keep it themselves, it becomes difficult to go to court or to go anywhere else. And it only creates more political acumen. But for us, it says a lot. If they're willing to share, as we had agreed, because we penned that down. We penned it. We had a contract on the basis of that. We had an agreement. And if they respect their side of the agreement or their part of the agreement, then fair enough. We will say, very good. They've behaved in a manner that is essentially befitting of the dignity of a political party. I come from a community where you can do business worth hundreds of millions of Kenyan shillings just through a handshake. So we say in my culture that your word of mouth, your word is like law for men and women. And if you respect it, fair enough. If you don't respect it, then it only affects you at the end of the day, because then you become a pariah within the business community. In the community I come from, we don't go to lawyers or the rest of them to put up big contracts when we're putting venture funds for billions of shillings sometimes. But having said that, if they go ahead and do a certain distribution and make sure that the people who supported them for the presidency last time, parties that were with them, do benefit from the little that they got from the exchequer or the treasury for this matter, well and good. If not, I'm not too much into the idea of dragging political parties into courts and the rest of it, and literally, it's a dirty game, and I don't think it's worth it. But then it tells a lot about the political profile of anybody who wants to lead this country or to be part of the leadership equation. Is that if you can't be trusted in your word, then how does a country or 50 million people trust you with anything?
Right, interesting one. Maybe to come to you, Honorable Jeremiah Kioni. While this could be looked at as a bad report, on the other hand, the beauty of it is the fact that it's all right. Parties are misusing money, but not losing money in this sense, and therefore there could be accountability. But the accountability speaks of the parties have used the monies on different things as opposed to promoting democracy, as the Auditor General would rightfully put it. Does it then clearly paint a picture of parties that are not well funded? Because if these monies are channeled towards running the activities in the parties, then that means these monies are needed, and therefore maybe more needs to be given to them so that they can as well run the activities in the parties, and in the same time have something left for pushing democracy.
I think you are spot on. I think this vindicates those of us who have always believed that political parties cannot function without some public funding. It informs the reason why we had that provision in the Constitution, because we didn't trust the successive governments with that provision if it was left in the Acts of Parliament. It's for that reason that provision was carried in the Constitution, so it makes it a little more difficult to do away with it. But then it goes on, and you can actually see the kind of money that was supposed to have gone to the political parties.
Yeah.
It's in the form of billions. Only that I don't think none of the parties seems to have received the amount they had budgeted from the exchequer. And this has been the case since 2010. I don't think there is any 1 year that parties have received the amount of money that they should have received over time. But that also allows me to say the following, that one of the reasons why it's been difficult also for us as leaders, as members of parliament, I can say in my case, why I have been unable to try and push for the case for the total amount of money to be released to the political parties is because that even if we were to release 4 billion shillings, sometimes it's up to 4 billion shillings the amount of money that should be released to the political parties, then you realize that only 2 parties would be sharing to these funds. And I always feel that this is never what we intended when we allowed this provision in the Constitution. The thinking was that if some amount of money could be availed to as many parties as possible, you will grow the democratic space.
Okay.
And once you have many parties at every level, then you also allow those people at that level to play part in the electioneering, in the governance structure of this country. Because if you have a party, for example, at the county level, and it is the amount of money that you need to pay to use its platform is such that it is affordable by the people around there, then you are also nursing, you are nurturing, you are nursing, you are able to nurse and nurture the talent, the ability of the people at that level to grow into even national leadership.
Okay.
The way it is now is that when you are dealing with 2 major parties, it becomes very competitive, very expensive, in fact, exclusive eventually to quite a number of people. And other than the management of, or the mismanagement of the funds that have already been released to this, because we are talking about 2-3 political parties,
yeah.
There is the other aspect that we need to address ourselves to. How many Kenyans are benefiting from this fund?
Okay.
We can't create a situation, and I know there are those who say the fewer parties the better for this country. But our situation is different. We do not need the 56 or the 70, but we need more players in the political arena for us to be able to help the special interest groups, women included in that group, the youth, persons with disability. They cannot be able to compete for slots only within these two parties, ODM and Jubilee. They need more smaller parties so that you can be able to come and sit here using the platform of your small party. And eventually Kenyans will pick you out. Why?
These parties are in existence.
You also have a gift.
Yes.
You get what I mean.
Right.
But if you are not able to sit here because we cannot be able to, there's no way of getting here.
Yeah.
Then you will die with the gift that you are given.
For the longest time, I know we have had these parties, and I have seen leaders of the same parties, conglomerating, complaining about the fact that they've not been funded. What stops, the government from, what stops, of course, the exchequer from, trickling in some money into
there must be a legislative agenda.
Okay.
I was in Parliament, and we worked on an act of Parliament which was to actualize Article 100. And Article 100 talks about how do we get the special interest groups into leadership in this country, including presence within the floor of Parliament. And we came up and said one of the ways is to have as many platforms as possible where these individuals can come and show their abilities, even to articulate issues of national importance, issues that relate to them, and what you have. But then what became of Article 100, when that provision, during the third reading, when we go to that provision was heavily amended, if it wasn't totally deleted, by the 2 major parties.
Okay.
One side was led by Mheshimiwa Badi, the leader of minority in Parliament. The other side was led by Mheshimiwa Adan Duale, the leader of majority party. So you can actually see the big parties are very careful to protect their turf. But that would have helped in the sharing out. We were saying we don't even need to just look at the votes that one has garnered at the national level. At the parliament, which includes the National Assembly and the Senate. But we also needed to pay attention to how much votes did you get at the county level. Let us also fund that small party that has MCAs but did not produce members of parliament. We had that forfeit in the Act.
Hold it, Mheshimiwa.
And I think it's the same thing being brought by the Register of Political Party. Parties, I'm told there is a bill that they have proposed. And until we are able to achieve that, of course, not losing sight of what the Auditor General is saying, that funds must still be used well. This is going to be a challenge to us.
Let's expound this further, and now that it's a point of interest. Honorable Maangi, realistically speaking, what we're getting here from Mheshimiwa is that, yes, it is evident that the parties that are getting funding, are not getting enough. One, to sustain the parties as it is, and as well promote democracy as the Auditor General would wish. Would it be realistic to say then that we need more parties incorporated, yet we're not even able to fund the key ones that we have today to a level where they can stay afloat as expected? And so incorporating more parties, where do we get the funding? Where do we get the monies to make sure that they also are given something out of the exchequer?
You see, I agree with Kioni to the extent to which we have to lower the threshold to qualify for political party fundings. Whether we need to go all the way down to MCL, I'm not sure. What I know is that in most of the developed, democracies, they use the National Assembly ratio, and they have it to an extent up to 5%. Anybody who's able to gain that cumulative votes, rather cumulative members of parliament up to 5% would be able to qualify for that. I think that one, maybe with a little bit of variation, maybe bring it down to 3%, is fair enough for us. And it promotes democracy because it promotes that diversity. And then it allows also smaller parties to have a certain takeoff. They have to have a baseline in terms of funding. Now, having said that, what I want to say is that political parties are private entities. They are not public entities. And any auditing or any accountability and checks and balances is internal. It's within the political party itself. You don't expect the government to butt into it to find out how the money was used. And I don't know what provisions of the Act the Auditor General has used. But my position is that only to the extent where there is pilferage and there is people who are lining their own pockets is when you can hold a political party accountable. But if a political party does not use these funds prudently, then of course it's that political party which is going to lose because they will end up not getting as many seats as possible as they would have ordinarily optimally managed. So you can't go around auditing that unless there are complaints from the political party. That goes to the government, or rather the rightful the ESCC or what do you call the police CID and the rest of it, and they say here the money is lining up in individuals' pockets. That becomes now a public interest. But beyond that, for the government to tell, or rather a government office like Auditor General, or I don't know, anyway, that's a political party's office, to prescribe for the political parties how to spend that money is taking away that sanctified independence of the political parties in that environment. The other thing that one needs to do, and I can explain this to you, is that in other parts of the world, there's fundraising. Political parties raise funds. They raise it from the public. They raise it from supporters. Now, there's a big problem in our country here. The leaders are the ones who raise money, and they raise from outsiders. They go to other countries, they go to other presidents, they go to all those people. Now, that worries, because if you go to a big, what do you call, entrepreneur in Korea, or you go to a very powerful, rich businessman in any other country, Malaysia, God knows, Emirates, and the rest of it, and he funds you with 40 million, 30 million US dollars. He definitely needs something in return. So what is it that you promised him when you get into power? that is a bit of an issue in our country. Leadership of parties, they go to all these friends of theirs in other countries, and go to a president of another third world country and collect 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, go to businessmen, collect a similar amounts of money. But you see, it's a bit of that worries now. That worries on the national security, on the nation itself, and those are the monies that must be declared when you come in here. You say it's from so and so. There are no rings, the strings attached, because you cannot, what do you call, sell out strategic interests of the country to what do you call, a potential donor who is going to wait for you to become the president and then later on seek what do you call his favors in return, and those favors might not be in line with the national interest itself. You might be taking away some of the sovereignties of the country. So these are the kind of things that the political bodies, regulating body, or rather the political parties regulating body, must be making sure that they are adhered to very, very strictly. But three things are brought out in here. One, the government cannot butt into the affairs of the political parties so much unless the internal issues that come out are brought to their own notice. Two, the threshold for qualifying for political party funding must be brought down, but of course you cannot take it all the way down and make it impossible to fund. Three, it's a certain portion of the national treasury that is basically a quota of the consolidated fund, a certain ratio that is supposed to be taken, whether there are going to be too many political parties or there are going to be too few political parties, and how they share it. That also has been specified on the number of votes. But those votes must be anchored on the National Assembly as far as I'm concerned. Four, you must make sure that money that comes from outside is properly accounted for, because somebody could promise a major big country that I'm going to give you a base, a military base when I come to power, and you take away the independence or the sovereignty of the country itself. I'm just taking one example. So any person who goes outside the country, raises funds outside the country, intends to bring those funds into the country, must account for those funds and what are the strings attached. And finally, you also need to raise money locally. I mean, you raise it to their supporters, you raise it to the electorate, raise it with the professionals who are there, but make sure it's always declared for purposes of internal scrutiny, internal within the party scrutiny. I mean, those are the kind of things I personally would look at as important ways to look at how to run a political party and how to manage funds that come either from the treasury or from any other source.
Okay, lastly on this, Honorable Maangi, probably the Auditor General then comes in because, well, this funding comes from the public coffers, and therefore it is necessary that we get accountability for the same. But just what will it take for parties to grow to levels where they'd be able to fully and totally fund themselves? Because you realize that while the Auditor General could raise these concerns, even on several occasions we've had party members complaining, Jubilee being the latest. On numerous occasions we've had members of Parliament or members of Jubilee Party also trying to question the leaders of the party as to how funds have been used within the parties, and therefore it is a genuine concern that needs to be looked into. I mean, members contribute to the coffers of the party. Just what goes into, making sure that these monies are well accounted for?
Linda, I think accountability of any public funds should be something that as a country we should get accustomed to. This is money coming from the exchequer. This is taxpayers' money, specifically meant to promote democracy and governance, good governance. So if we don't account for it properly, it means that we are actually misusing it. Now, I am of a different opinion from my colleague's opinion, that we should lower the threshold to make sure that more parties get this money. I don't think so. If you look at many developed democracies, right from Britain, United States of America, Canada, normally there are 2 or maximum 3 major parties. In America, it is Republicans versus Democrats. In the UK, it is the Conservatives versus the Liberals. So it's normally 1 or 2 or 3 parties that compete for this funding. And these 2 or 3 parties promote democracy properly. Now, if you lower the requirement or the standard, and then you have 5, 6, or 7, or 8 smaller parties qualifying for this funding, it will defeat the purpose. We will again fragment. We say you will be spreading yourself too thin. And if you spread yourself too thin, you will not be able to realize the purpose for which this fund was supposed to be. I think we should leave it where it is and let us have 2 or maximum 3 parties qualifying. At the moment, it is ODM and Jubilee. Now, Jubilee, ODM here meaning NASA. This internal wrangles in NASA is because of greed. People are being greedy. If people were to sit down and agree that really who qualified for what? Because I mean, if you didn't qualify, let me ask you, Linda, if you have only one senator, in the Senate, and the other partner has 2 senators, how do you wake up one morning and demand equal share? I mean, this sharing should be proportionate. So sometimes leaders are becoming greedy. But the most important thing, according to me, is this money should be used to grow democracy, to grow proper governance, to promote civic education, but not just personalism.
All right. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen.
I could only add a small thing and say, the intention is not to remove funding from the big players. We don't want to weaken them at all, because it is good for the country. And the direction that we have taken was to try and reduce the amount of money that is left for the big players to share. So instead of the case as is now of over 80% of the funds, we had actually come to 54.3% and said this amount of money must be left for those key players. And it's still chunk of money. But the balance of about 40% is shared between the smaller parties and also the management of to cater for the overheads for the Register of Political Parties office, because he also draws, or that office also draws its money from the same kitty.
Right.
And so I think we are on the same line. We are not completely removing the funding from, and we are not saying that you should not aim to have a big chunk of members of parliament, members of the county assembly, governors, and the rest. But we're also saying help the smaller ones also grow. One day they'll also be big brothers. All
right. Well, a conversation that is quite huge probably would need more time to extensively discuss on that. But then on that very note, we do not close the conversation on the newspapers in totality, but we as well get into others that are captured. And as to what our very own Mr. Salah had, worked on in terms of a story and just trying to look at the politics of the day, he engages individuals that finish by saying, or that conclude their statements by saying, that there is a deliberate interest or attempt to make sure that Mount Kenya is divided, the Mount Kenya vote is divided. You remain adamant that the vote cannot be divided. But when it is said, where there is smoke, there certainly is fire. Why do you suppose that there are some players who are so keen to see the mountain divided?
I don't think there is any player who is keen to see the mountain divided. It is the appeal nature who is appealing to the community at the moment, and as opposed to there before, without one key person playing the role that has been played by now the President Uhuru Kenyatta. Before it was Mwai Kibaki, before them we had others. You notice that it becomes difficult for people to have one focus.
Yes.
Because before it was one focus on the leaders that I've mentioned, and then we entrusted them with the eventuality. Where would they want to play the cards for the community? But unlike that time, it is not that way this time round. I know the individuals who are still trying to generate a momentum within the region. But it gives the community an opportunity to listen to many people without one person telling them, listen to this person.
Okay.
And without doubt, all the players in the field will have to, in place, they will have to sell their ideas to those in the mountain. I want to say that the partners in Jubilee, the DP, I don't know whether he saw this much earlier, and he decided to throw his weight there, or what it is, but he certainly has played a key role in getting the area not to think in one voice. In many ways, including, it's not anything that we can shy away from saying, being rebellious to his boss for 4 years, doing what his boss was telling him not to do. Stop campaigning. So for 4 years, he's been campaigning in this region. Others did not do the same, and I don't want to fault them. In fact, it is credible on their part that they restrained from getting the country into that campaign mode. For 4 years, would have achieved zero, completely in terms of development. And it's actually from that platform that I think there was quite some level of dishonesty. I feel that kind of dishonesty should not be demonstrated by leaders, because but we are now where we are with that reality that the DP has been campaigning in this region for 4 years. He has a chunk, a sizable following up to where we are. The only thing about it is that that chunk is quickly being chipped off in a very alarming speed, I can tell you, for the reason that, and people have said this, until you are running with others, you didn't know what kind of competition exists. And here we have Omanyala.
Yes. He
goes to the Olympics, and the Americans have been running among themselves, and they certainly was clear. We are getting the gold, the silver, and the rest, until they're in the field running. And Omanyala comes there, and you can see, other than that thing, I don't know what they're talking about, another clock that put him at third place.
Yes.
He was number 2.
Right.
And clearly, Blake, if people have, those who've been following the 100 sprints, I have a bit, Blake was one of the clear favorites.
Yes.
He calls him champion. The American is now referring to the Kenyan as a champion. A person we here in this country
would never
don't even know. When the final race comes, it's when you now tell, even in politics. You have been doing all these things for that. I have talked about the 50% shipping that we did at Kiaba. In 3 weeks, a person was contributing over 80-90%, and in 3 weeks, we were able to cut that by half. Now, look at what has happened in the last 2-3 weeks. For 4 years, we have had this economic model. I don't want to call it whatever name, but the economic model that the narrators have been presenting. But in less than 2 weeks, you actually wonder, what is this? We have had their key readers
to explain,
but in less than 3 weeks, the whole thing has been brought down to nothing.
So they say it's not yet time to speak about this, and they will.
Well, they are not here to defend themselves, and I believe that
they are here. Don't worry, one of them is here, so they will defend.
All right, can I finish then? In fact, it is good.
Allow us to take a short break.
I just wanted to say one final thing. In 3 weeks, in less than 3 weeks, the economic model is not there. They'll have to reconstruct it again. A sympathizer is with us this morning of the same, probably, yes, still in the ODM party, but then again buys into this narrative that is Honorable Joash Maangi, and therefore I will ask him to defend that. But that's a bit confusing, not just for the leaders themselves, but the people on ground. Much as we have the vote, it appears that, well, it's going to be a tricky one to make a decision. And so as we delve deep into understanding, well,
what would be looked at as confusion within the Mount Kenya region, or a split, so to speak, and confusion within different parties, it is obvious that we have to have these conversations so that at least by the time it's 2022, then we'll have a clear picture of what we are doing, where the nation is headed. And so the gentleman with me still in studio, Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, is here with us, joining us virtually, Honorable Joash Maangi and Honorable Farah Maalim. We come straight to you, Honorable Joash Maangi. And they say, and at least from what it is that we have seen, it's still not clear as to what the bottoms-up approach is all about. Do you suppose the foot soldiers of the Deputy President then have failed him in making the masses understand? And is there more time for you to probably come and, make it clear? As a majority would say, we still are featuring white. One of them was here with Elizabeth Mutuku the other day. She says, Bado wanna feature white. It's just a matter of time before they tell us everything about this beautiful economic model that is the bottoms-up approach.
Before I speak about the bottoms-up approach, let me say something about the interest in Mount Kenya. The interest in Mount Kenya is simply because of its sheer number. Mount Kenya controls, let's say, close to 30% of the entire electorate in this country. It will be naive of any politician to assume that if you lose 30% of the electorate, you'll be in a safe position. That's why I will understand why any politician who wants to become president will want to go Mount Kenya. We keep on comparing this with other countries. In the US, we have the electoral college system, whereby each state produces a number of delegates. California alone, out of 521 delegates, California alone produces about 80 delegates. And that is why from time immemorial, no Democrat has ever become president in America without winning California. It's a simple question of numbers. So if you win California, you have 80 delegates, and you need 207 delegates to win. So you win one state, you have 8 delegates. You have a third of the delegates you need to win. So in the Kenyan scenario, you back Mount Kenya, you have 30% of the, you are 30% close to winning. So it will make sense for any presidential candidate to go to Mount Kenya because of their sheer numbers. Now, on the bottom-up policy, Linda, I do not understand what is difficult in this bottom-up policy, because first and foremost, it's not new. If you look at the MDGs, that's the Millennial Development Goals, the bottom-up policy is one of the things that the developed world wanted the third world countries to implement. And allow me to describe what bottom-up policy is, or the bottom-up theory. This is an economic approach which is supposed to be completely opposed to trickle-down theory. Now, what does the bottom-up theory mean? The bottom-up theory means that instead of concentrating our resources at the top, we should now concentrate our resources at the bottom in a pyramidal approach, more like a pyramid, so that the bottom majority, which is 78%, we give it more resources than the top. Let me take the example of Kisii. We are an agricultural county, and we have farmers who produce maize, erythrum, coffee, and all these things. But all of them are poor because they do not the amount of income they get, especially for the tippers, the middlemen get more money. The up there, the directors get a lot of money, but the actual farmers do not make much money. So the bottom-up policy is a system where we want to insist that the people who are actually producing, the producers, the people producing raw materials should be given resources so that they earn more money. And once they have earned more money, then we will have increased their purchasing power. If you empower the farmer will be able to earn more money. Then the farmer will be able to buy from the groceries, from Mamboga, from the locals. And if you are, because the farmer has more money and is now buying, doing a lot of local purchases, we would have increased the tax base. Once you have increased the tax base, it means now more people from the lower side of the pyramid will have increased the tax base, number one. Number two, we will have increased the purchasing power of the people on the ground. Number three, we will have reduced fatigue. That is simply what bottom-up policy is. That let us take more resources to the bottom, which is more. Let us take more resources to the people who are actually producing the raw material. Let us take resources to the farmers, to the Mamboga, to the border. As we take more resources there, we're increasing tax base.
Honorable Farah, Maalim, are you convinced with that explanation now that they also are countering the 35%?
You know, my brother Maangi, appreciate, he's a legal mind, he's actually a learned friend. But in terms of economics, there are only three practical ways of handling national economics. Either the economy is worker friendly, or it is business friendly, or it is a hybrid of both. And that's essentially what it is. You look at the Democrats, they're worker friendly. They are there out there to promote the interests of the blue collar, tax the rich more, and tax the working class less. And that way you create a social revolution which the ordinary person has got a minimum wage that is good enough to take care of the family. And then you invest more money into areas like education, health, and the rest of it to make it more affordable for the working class. And eliminate also the role that business plays in such strategic areas like health, because if you allow it, if you just give the free rein to the business, then they will put up very expensive hospitals everywhere, which is not going to be easily affordable to the ordinary man. That's why we had something called Obamacare. That's why there was more money put into schools and the rest of it. And that is now the worker, ordinary person friendly economics. The other economics is when you say it's a trickle down, more or less it's also used as trickle down, has a bit to do with what was called economics. But you empower the rich. The rich are going to invest more. They will create employment, they create jobs, and make sure that you reduce their taxes. Your taxes. Now that is another one. And then of course there are the people who try to marry the two together and both try to keep both happy, which is not very easy. And that's what Tony Blair did. I don't know if you remember how Tony Blair ran the economy of that country. But for us here, the basic thing we see with our friend is people running with wheelbarrows, and you talk about Mamboga. And I can tell you one thing about William, and occasionally also when he was there with his friend Uhuru last time, Uhuru was very clever to make sure that he does not make certain pronouncements that will be held onto him. Because William used to say, we'll grow the economy double digit. Now, how are you going to grow the economy double digit? He does not give you the mathematics of that. He does not give you the logic or the rationale of that. Is just you shout a word and assume that everybody is going to see this country go. So in other words, we're saying we're taking you to a better place. We're going to make you rich. We're going to help you get all these things. We'll put resources at the bottom. Resources. How do you do the resources at the bottom? Handouts, as somebody was asking right now. Now you know, even if there's a bit of a sincerity in that. I was hearing somebody last night debunk it. You are sincerely wrong. That's not how economics works. You will have to say, I'm going to reduce the public wage. I'm going to increase the taxation of the rich. I'm going to do. I mean, that's if he's talking about dealing with the bottom and giving them more. you come up with plans and say, this is what I'm going to do, so many billions from here. I'm going to do so many billions from here. I'm going to increase so many billions through A, B, C, D, and you show the economics of that. And I'm going to use this money saved into this or that. I mean, you don't just go out there and say bottoms up, bottoms up. It's like the fancy double-digit growth, 24-hour economy. But yeah, okay, 24-hour economy basically was the one which, in my opinion, is a very good idea that you really don't need to put much into it other than to make sure that the public sector works 24 hours, certain elements of the public sector like the port. He's not talking about free ports or saying that, look, we're going to privatize certain ports. We're going to reduce the rates we charge for the landlocked countries to make sure that we attract back all the traffic that left us to go to Dar es Salaam and Tanga and the other parts. I mean, you have to come up with an idea that says, this is where we are going to make this money. This is where we are going to create this richness. And people will understand it. But then you just come up with a fancy one-line statement or two-line statements and say, this is how our focus is the ordinary person, Mama Mboga. But how in the Mama Mboga? Give us the explanation of how you are going to promote that Mama Mboga. Let me tell you a small man's friendly economics. It happened in the agricultural sector. At the time we got independence, most of the wizards in economics never saw how those big farms or big plantations owned by white settlers, if they were subdivided into 5 acres, 3 acres, or 10 acres, how they were going to function. And people believed that those farms are going to be destroyed. I mean, that economy will go to hell. But when we put in our people there and the coffee sector started doing very well, you could see somebody with 5 acres making a lot of money. But because there was the coffee board, which worked for the people, there was a KTA, Kenya Tea Development Authority, which worked for the tea farmers. There was a National Cereals and Produce Board, which did a fantastic job. All those things were later on taken over by political cartels and their own, what they call handymen, and they were destroyed. So if you're going to come back to us and say that I am going to reform this, and this is how it's going to work, I'm going to reform that, this is how it's going to work.
Speaker.
All right, fair enough. I know Honorable Kioni wants to come in, but well, let me ask this question as you also respond to what he says. If there's this conviction deep down that maybe there's nowhere that this hustler narrative is going, it is not convincing enough, then why is it that Jubilee is now crafting, ways of countering this hustler narrative that has been propagated left, right, and center, and appears to, have resonated well with the people on ground, like you started by saying. You are part of the people that have been captured on the paper this morning as to, the key figures in the Jubilee Party that seek to counter that narrative. What is the interest in this case?
When you put your child, I don't know whether you ever tried teaching. I did. I have done it. I'm even part-time lecturing at the University of Nairobi. Okay. But when you have a child in Form 1 like they are reporting today, and at the end of Form 4, you put a simple exam paper to ask, what is it that you've been running for the last 4 years? And the child cannot be able to put some 3 paragraphs that can help you understand what was Form 1 to Form 4 all about. Forget about the depth of the syllabus. Then you know something is wrong, either with the school or with the child or with the whole system. And you need to not just address the capacity of the child, but also the system. This narrative has been taught to us for the last 4 years by the teachers. And the teachers themselves, whom you had in the studios in the last week or so, none of them can be able to tell you where they began, where they are going, and what it is likely to be the eventual outcome. That's a major worry to even us as readers. Even those who thought that they can follow that narrative, you must ask, na hawa wanatuambia tufuate nini hawaelewi? That's the major thing. Kama mwenye anakuambia umfuate haelewi mwenyewe, then you have to be very careful. And that has come out clearly. And what the hustlers can now do is only to sit back or go back to the drawing room and try and, make good, because already it's looking bad. And let me say this. And because let me look for the easier way to say it. For you to benefit as a farmer with the products or the produce that you're getting from your farm, you must sell.
Yep.
For there to be a sale, there must be buyers. You are somebody who to buy. You are there, you are the producer, you are selling. There must be somebody who will come and buy. If there is nobody buying, then it does not matter the amount of money that you have put in or the amount of government support that has been given to you, if there is no corresponding ability to buy. This thing of, and it is not bottoms, you need to move the S. I hear even the deputy governor saying the same. And even last night I was in a studio and I was embarrassed all the way to the end because somebody kept saying bottoms up. It's not bottoms. I think it's bottom up.
It's bottom up
Let me just
okay.
be fair to these narrators. It's bottom up. If you can put as much money as you wish to excite the people at the bottom, of course we need to be told where you are getting this money from.
Mm-hmm.
But there must be another group that comes and consumes. In few words, the middle income in any country and in any economic model are very key. They must have the ability, and it is you and the others who are seated in these places.
Mm-hmm.
You must have the ability to buy.
Into that.
So your income must be growing. What has been happening in the last 10 years? Remember 2002? We were being paid 9,000 shillings.
Mm-hmm.
That was the minimum wage. It grew to 17 to 26. At the end of Kibaki's era, people were earning 33,000 shillings from 9,000. Mm-hmm. So the middle income was created that could then buy that was being created by perhaps the lower income group.
Yeah.
But where are we today? We are still at 33,000. We have grown by very little, maybe that. Even if it has grown, the inflation has been higher. So whatever increment you are given during in your salary places has been eaten away by there. So you have less to buy. You are buying much less than what you were doing 10 years ago. If you don't address that aspect of it, and even if you incite and excite the lower income group, you will still not get any results out of this. In fact, they will be stuck, like I was mentioning the other day. Drive along Dagoret Road, Karen, look at the furniture. Wonderful work that is being done by Kenyans. Very good pieces of, but somebody is stuck with a stock. Beds, chairs, tables, dining, worth 5 million, 6 million there for 1, 2, 3, 4 months. Why? Because there's nobody who has the ability to come and spend and buy. So if you do not address yourself to that middle income, and if you think that you can take money from the middle income, take it to the low income, get them to generate something, and these people cannot buy, you will actually end up with a very heavy frustration. And let me also say this. So what we have failed to do is to increase productivity. Productivity is what has completely stagnated in this country. And you can see the heavy infrastructure development. The Mombasa Express Highway, huge, 40 plus billion shillings. But you will realize that all this money is being moved around, perhaps in China, not locally. So the ability for us to have the feel of the money is not there. A big structure has come. Yeah. But let me say this. This is nothing new. If there is a song we sing in Kikuyu that says there is nothing new you are going to tell us that has never been told to us that will come from heaven. We've had all these models with us. There is absolutely nothing new in this. There is no country in the world, I can say with certainty, within this region, but I can even risk by saying the world, that has been researched on these SMEs, the informal sector, than Kenya. We have been having researches since 1970 on the small, the mid, these SMEs, Juakali, and all these proposals have been there, including at time we had even warehouses that were supposed to help them grow. But there are 3 things that have come out. And I can tell you that even in my own house, my wife is involved in these things, and she can be able to be of a lot of help, perhaps even to these hustlers. One is access to credit. That is why we have the Youth Fund, Women Fund, Wezo Fund. We have all these micro, the front offices. All these are meant to improve the access to credit.
But we've lacked accountability on the same. Also, Wezo on the other day, the Auditor General
there you
had
go.
put a question
So that
mark.
is perhaps that is where we should be addressing the model.
Okay.
The other one is access to market. I have made these sufrias. Go to Machakos today. I have these sufrias, I have these jikos, I have even these wheelbarrows. They are being made by the same people, the very low income people. They are the ones making the wheelbarrows. Where do we sell them? Access to market. The third thing that has been used, you have seen the government deal with it over the time, is where the space, where do we do our bit? We created Juakali sheds, and even now in that's one of the things that county governments are supposed to be doing. Create spaces, yards, whatever, and you can even see the national government doing that. And finally, which is also very important, it is our ability to help them with capacity building so that they are able to do the cap and finish it nicely as others are able to do, so that you can compete in the other markets. That is where we need to lay. That's what we want to hear people saying, this is how I'm going to improve given where we are. Because I'm saying there's nothing new I'm going to bring in, but we already have work going on. How do we improve us from where we are? Okay. We have all these roads, infrastructure work that are being done by Jubilee. How are you going to make it get money in people's pockets? Hii kitu tunasema pesa mfukoni. That's what we want to hear. But and because you cannot tell me that, and I don't want to talk about the wheelbarrow. I don't want to say that it is a bad thing to give those things we are helping. But then you have to stop hoodwinking us. We can see beyond there. We ask you, and then
out of the people that we have away
it?
From the wheelbarrow, is there any of them that you think is presenting something close to what you wish for? But a scenario where we can improve on where President Uhuru Kenyatta has left
I want you to be fair with everybody else. Those of us who chose to help the Jubilee deliver on its promises for 4 years.
All right.
We were faithful and honest.
Until?
And that comes with integrity.
Okay.
That there is something we need to do first. And that's what the president has been telling us. And I'm not here to pitch for him. But it is only fair for the government that has won the elections to be given, even the one that will win 2022. We do not want somebody back in the field 2023 campaigning. We want that to be done. You cannot now tell us to quickly rush and throw our model on the table. Unfortunately, when you start running ahead of everybody else, it is you we focus on.
Is it not unfair then that you're pushing them out?
I am saying
the Tanga guys
it is just a matter of time before people now put their models on the table. Okay. And you cannot tell me to rush there. I have my timing. We are saying we are still not yet to where we should start throwing models on the table. But they did. They threw theirs 4 years ago, and we have an opportunity to even benefit from it and here, but we are surprised.
They are yet to give us the breakdown, they say.
4 years.
Yes. I mean, what is the rush? What is the rush? You probably are excited to get his.
You cannot disrupt the running in a crash for 4 years. And then when you are asked to tell us what it is that you have been wanting us to do, you then tell us, I am still going to do.
But this is politics.
You must be a very poor student.
We take a short break. We take a short break and then come back, wind up on that. All right, we take a quick break. Gentlemen, I know you're there virtually waiting to probably weigh in on this. Honorable Kioni can really, take his time to articulate this, which is pretty much good. And so we take a quick breather. We come back.
When you have taken a stand and you don't like something, even if any explanation is given, you will not want to accept. But the reality is that what they have done is they have complemented what I said. Let me re-explain this. Kioni has explained very nicely how when we want to increase production, when we want to increase productivity, you even make sure that we have proper access to credit, you make sure that we have proper access to markets, and once you have access to markets, then people will sell and make incomes. That is exactly what we are explaining. We are saying we want to empower the producers, the farmers. How do we empower them? By making sure that they have access to credit, by making sure that they have access to markets, and consequently by making sure that they get proper income. Once they have made proper income, then they will move to the next level of the middle class. Now, Linda, no country has ever developed without a vibrant middle class. Now, how do you make a middle class to be vibrant? How do you even create a middle class? By making sure that the low-income group is given resources to move up the ladder, the middle class. If you look at countries like India, Linda, India has developed because of its cottage industries. If you look at countries like Korea, Korea started with small manufacturing, more like crafts. Now it's a manufacturing powerhouse. What we are saying is that if India was able to grow through cottage industries, why can't we make sure that in Kenya, take the example of Kisii again, if we had, for example, we produce bananas, sugarcane, if we were to empower the people of Kisii by creating cottage industry so they can begin, for example, can create canning factories, small cottage industries, cooling facilities, that we would have empowered the farmer. And then the farmer, once we have empowered the farmer, we would have increased his purchasing power. Once increased purchasing power, is going to buy, and then money is going to circulate. As money circulates, everybody's going to pay taxes. We have created tax. So what it's explaining is exactly what I'm explaining. Only that Kioni is reluctant to accept that what he's saying is the same thing as a bottom-up theory.
No, can I just say before you let him Mara, that I've said again, and I don't know why the deputy governor cannot, Farah, just one sentence and then you take, I don't know why he is not appreciating that we are saying there is nothing new.
In what is
yes, and if you really can tell us for 4 years you have not told us anything new, why didn't you help us why didn't you help us improve the services that exist? We are saying access to credit. And we had the Weso Fund, Women Fund, we have the Youth Fund. Just to mention the ones that are familiar with us. And the idea is that we need to allow they have access to credit. We need to make sure that there is market for their produce. And these things were even tried with the economic stimulus of 2009, 2008. If you use any other system of looking for money and taking it to the people at the raw level, dishing out cash, that is what we want to be told. How are you getting that cash to them, other than through institutions? If it is to have your money in the boot of your car and taking it to the people, we saw it with Moi. What eventually became is imprinted money, and this country went to the dogs.
Right.
So we have to be careful with this thing that sounds very nice, and the simple, easiest solutions to the ear of the Kenyans for very difficult solutions, problems. And this is not anything new that is there. We have, where was CDF started? CDF was started to try, how can we get money near the people? So idea is that this is the same thing, and I can tell you, I can refer them to go and have a case study with Laikipia, where he has identified 750 small, ordinary people, helping them to do cottages, giving them money through devolution in an accountable manner, and helping them to grow. But then he's also trying to identify a market for them. And I can tell you one of the person is that one of the places that do the tailoring work, Tegereza Suti, Nyahururu, they have taken some shops and say, buy them. Even the governor is saying, I wear these guys' suits. Yes. You must create up some market of some sort. So what is this new? Other than, if you are trying to improve on what we have been doing, why then did they run away from us for 4 years ago, and then to just tell us what we have been doing in another language? You call it hustler, you call it wheelbarrow, but you are telling us what we have just been doing in another language that is accurate to hoodwink Kenyans. And we saw Moi do it for 24 years, and it left us poor.
Honorable Farah Maalim, as you react and also tell us what is going on within the, I don't want to say Oko, as many people would say, neither do I want to call it the Serala coalition, but the One Kenya Alliance.
Well, it's a political coalition of 4 parties who have come together, and we're still open to more parties coming to us. And that's Wiper, ANC, Fort Kenya, and KANU. And the idea is to create a grand coalition and unite the country. As for the ideas we have about matters or items that areas that we need to deal with, in our economic model and the rest of it. That's going to come out in the manifesto, and that's going to be after the coalition itself is concretized and actualized and realized. So basically, it's like-minded people who have come together. Many of us have been together before in NASA, so the only additional player we have is Kanu and Gideon Moy. So we already had shared a lot of ideas together in the past, that we feel that we can bring in the new entrance into that and see essentially how we can take this country forward. Look, the country is thoroughly divided. The economy is on its knees. Corruption and other social ills have taken center stage. You cannot, bring about a change in this country without having that broad-based coalition. You must bring a lot of Kenyans together and see how that the country can salvage. We don't have the luxury right now of just running for office. We intend to try and salvage the country. And for your information, by the time we start paying these debts and they mature, these external debts, the Chinese debt, many other debts also, we shall be in big trouble. Right now, we are borrowing to service debts. When somebody tells you a debt is being serviced, it means we're just paying the interest. The principal is not being taxed. So it's all of it will come together, and like Kioni said, we might end up printing money, and when you print money, the economy collapses. So we in Okoa, Kenya, One Kenya Alliance, or OKA Kenya, OKA, we're basically trying to say all hands on the deck, because we cannot afford, we don't have the luxury of being divided at the time. So we are looking for that grand coalition to try and see how we can bring back this ship, which is completely on a lopside, on a proper kiln again. But having said that, there is no way that you can run around for 4 good years and talk about hustle economics without any what you call explanations and educating people on exactly what it takes. And today, when you have debunked and you basically have nothing else to say, you say we're going back to the drawing board again. We'll come up with something. No, it's not there. You've never had it from the beginning. This was just it's a fraudulent way of trying to treat Kenyans to win their votes. And once you're in there, you go back to your old. And by the way, let me tell you one thing. The best way to develop this country with a bottoms-up approach is to support the existing institutions that are there. The smallholder farmer who has nowhere to take his, you see, right now we produce a lot of maize. The farmer produces maize, he has no markets for it. Middlemen come and buy it for nothing. And then there's a shortage. A lot of it gets exported outside. And then we import at a very high price. Now, the government is not protecting the farmer. Way back, I remember we had what was called the GMR, the Guaranteed Minimum Returns. We don't have it. William Ruto was the Minister for Agriculture one time, and I remember there were too many scandals there, which could not be explained, including bringing aflatoxin, what they call infected maize to Kenya here from Mozambique, which was supposed to be destroyed, and paid a bomb for it and fed our own Kenyans with that. So the idea, in my opinion, is that how are you going to, you have to protect the markets from external competition.
Okay.
You have to allow the smallholder put money aside so that the smallholder, whether he's a maize farmer or a tea farmer or a coffee farmer, eliminate this shylocking or what you call predatory middlemen who prey on these farmers and make sure that the returns are as close to the international prices as possible for maize, for tea and coffee. For the maize farmer, protect him so that the maize bag cannot be sold for anything less than 5,000, 6,000 Kenya shillings per bag. Now, you come up with areas where you say, I'll support this in this way, I'll support that in that way. Go to Mombasa Port and say that we shall reduce our tariffs by 50% or 30% or 20%. So that we can effectively compete with Dar es Salaam, compete with Tanga, with Lobito, I think way back in those sides of Congo DRC on the Atlantic,
Right.
And these are the kind of things that one needs. One needs to be told. Joakali, what have we done to Joakali? They still have, and they're just heating metal up there. Why didn't we innovate that and make sure these were proper industries with the small people, smallholder industries are there? The government is going to buy. He was talking about the Kenya industrial assets where his wife, he claims, and I want to really respect him for that and appreciate the role that his wife played in that. But I'm sure she must have been one of the most frustrated people in that, because that thing was completely destroyed. Eventually, it was given to the rich people. So the whole idea that we are going to bring up the lower end of our society and give them a decent living and give them decent wages. The only person who tried to do that was Kenyatta in the beginning, and later on Kibaki. And after that, it's all gone to hell now for the last 7, 8 years, 9 years. So I don't think we really need to waste a lot of time on what's called the hustler movement or the bottom up. What do you call it? Bottom up is a proper concept. It's an economic model. It's a proper concept. I support it myself, but not the kind of bottom up which is just opportunistic, fraudulent way of trying to take the people's votes so that then you can do what you want.
Okay.
So I think there is need for us to completely, let's be honest with Kenyans. Let's put these things together in a good way. In any case, why are we where we are now, and who are responsible for it? That's the first question one would ask himself. Why are we where we are? Why are we where we are? Kioni, 1 second only, I'll finish it. Why are we where we are? The same William Ruto was the one who was fighting very hard for those Eurobond, for those what we call SGR, for all the problem, the mess we're in here, the loans we're borrowing. He was there in the first 5 years, literally the de facto president. Now you turn around and pretend that you had nothing to do with that. Well, that's why we're in this bad state. No. This is, who do you take us to be? Idiots? Kenyans? So there are a lot of problems in this country. A lot of problems that one needs to level up and be honest and ask the right questions. What sickens me more than anything else is to see brilliant scholars who just get into the bandwagon because probably they're getting paid some very good consultancy fees there and are trying to market what essentially just because I think that kind of a loyalty is only what we call driven by no more than consultancy fees. So it's sick. It's very sick, and it's sickening.
Okay. As we weigh the options.
I don't know whether it's a final, but I wanted to say, just to pick from what you were saying, why are we where we are? One of the reasons is because the individuals who are seeking to lead us at the top, some of them have permanently had their hands in the till, not in a proper way, but in the wrong way.
Okay.
They have actually stolen from Kenyans. And if you've been stealing from Kenyans, how do you again trust you with anything, including even if it's a bottom-up approach that works? We are not sure that once it works, you're not going to continue stealing from us. So one, that model cannot work if you have conflict of interest.
Okay.
Two, that model cannot work if corruption is not dealt with. And if in your camp, it also looks like at the center or the hiding corner for the corrupt. It can never work, and we cannot trust you, not just with the bottom-up approach, even with the trickle-down approach.
All right.
All the tried models can never be tried with people who steal money.
Let's overlook these people and look at the other options that we have on the table today, at least as of now, as we await to get more options. And
the options we have on the table today, Leader, the options we have on the table today is implementing what was promised by Jubilee 2017.
Are you trying to tell us that Jubilee is going to bounce back?
No, I'm not saying that, but they are the ones, allow me, Farah, you remember you were helping me speak in Parliament. They are the ones who have the mandate. They are the ones who have the mandate up to 2022, and we are implementing on the platform that they gave us. We are seeing infrastructure development. Now, the issue is those who wants to move beyond 2022, they will be putting their models on the table. For today, we have this Hasana narrative. It is the one we are chabuaring, and you can actually see the difficulties that it is coming with it. I would expect that those who would want to put their models on the table will of course learn a lot from the mistakes that are already being committed.
Okay.
I do not want to go the far away where I suggest how it should be done. That will come because I know the way Kenyans behave, politicians behave, the reason to what you are saying, and then they behave like it is their idea. I do not want to do that. I started this issue of the this CBC education system back in 2008. I don't know where you are. I said we must clap the 844 thing and the standard 8, and Farah was my speaker. I started that, you can actually see, but nobody will ever give us credit for that. They take off with it and it makes it look like it's theirs. So I do not want to put what I think should be done on the table.
Right.
And until we have created that platform. And we are in the process of it. And I can tell you that what you are seeing in the papers, we may end up very far from anything that is written in the papers today.
So the likes of Musalia Mudavadi, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, those are the names that are written on the papers today. Honorable Maangi is there. Let's not...
Can I just say a word before you go to the paper?
No, Linda, I think it's my time.
Just one word, Maangi, one word.
Too far in Kisii.
One sentence.
Okay.
Kioni, when? At the end of your term, 10 years Jubilee was there, it's not done anything. You're coming up with a plan now when you're to the elections.
No,
exactly.
I didn't say that we are coming up with a model. I'm saying that we are still working on what it is that they promised. New models will be put on the table by those who are eyeing 2022 and beyond.
Fine, Linda, let me say this. When you listen to my colleagues, they are all saying that there's nothing wrong with bottom-up policy, apart from the fact that it's not new. So they are accepting there's nothing wrong with it, apart from the fact that it's not new. Now, if they're accepting that there's nothing wrong with it, then let us put it. You know, Kioni has asked a very important question. Why are we where we are today? This is the question Kenyans must ask themselves. And this is the question Kenyans must answer in 2022. Kenyans are going to answer this question in 2022 by electing a person who will take us from where we are today to a better place. Linda, there's this question that you asked about OKA. Or One Kenya Alliance. My honest opinion is that One Kenya Alliance is just but a holding ground for the four politicians before they decide where to go. Some will join the DP, others will join Raila. And as I always say, 2022 will be a race between two horses, Raila Odinga, William Samoei Ruto. All these others are holding themselves as they prepare to join either DP or Raila. Now, Linda...
Moi declared his interest yesterday. He said he is going to go for it. So why would you assume that he's going to change his mind?
You know, declaring an interest is one thing and winning is another.
Okay.
Moi can declare 10 times, but Moi is not going to win. He's not going to win the presidency 2022. I don't want to use a bad name, but when we look at, you know, in a race, there will be horses, there will be donkeys. So we all know many people declare, many donkeys declaring their interest, but there are only two horses in the race. Yes.
Okay. I think donkeys is what we call donkeys.
All right.
And I don't know whether Okoa is what he is calling Opa or something, but he is a little far from.
Briefcase carriers they are called.
But I think it is not useful to dismiss any of the political. These individuals are there, but the reality of it is that when you are running and when you want to look for the presidency, and when you have ideas that you would want to bring on the table, it is always important to look at what is possible. And I can tell you that that is the case.
What is possible?
What is possible? You want to play with that aspect of the possibility. And I remember the deputy governor did mention something crucial, that we have Mount Kenya block here. With I can tell you, there's about 35% of the vote. And it's going to play a killer. I see some people doing it within Jubilee, and others are doing it within Tanga Tanga. There is always that struggle that it's easier for the media to paint you either Jubilee or Tanga Tanga. It's easier for you to manage and to report. But it is also good to pay attention to what any other might that is coming outside those ambitions. And whenever you hear us talk about the Jubilee agenda, it's not that we are out to defend much, but we are being honest, we are being faithful. There's nothing we are going to do between now and 22 when we hold the elections. We will be at the management of Jubilee. And if you want to say mismanagement of Jubilee, say it. But we will be under the care of the Jubilee government. And any wise leader would want to get the maximum out of the one that is in control. That is why we have to remain on course from that front. You know, what we do after that, others can continue putting their cards on the table. Unfortunately, 4 years ago, the Hasala team put something on the table, and 4 years down the line, we can actually see that they have not thought through it. They never thought through it. They thought they would just wink us, put us together and tell us that we just give them votes. Kenyans have moved. They will be asking questions on everything you say and you do. And I want to tell you as I conclude, it is not just the economic model that you put on the table. We are also interested with your character. We want to know what did you do when we gave you an opportunity earlier. All right, let's allow Farah to finish. Do not allow us, we cannot allow ourselves to go back to Moi era, where this model was tried and people ended up printing money, we ended up in the dogs. 30 seconds, Honorable Farah Maalim.
Linda, there's a big question that, Maangi asked. Which was what's wrong with bottom-up model? Because that's what they're saying. Their version of bottom-up model, there's one problem with nothing else. The rest, we can build a very good concept around it. The problem is Ruto. Nobody can trust Ruto, number one.
We close it at that, gentlemen. Let's close it at that. Yes,
Number two. Well, whether you say donkeys or you say horses, you can say, anybody can say what he wants. But the presidency of this country come 2022, you're looking at no outside two people. Kalonzo Mudavadi. One will be a president and the other one most likely the deputy president. So you can dismiss them now, but Kenyans are looking for those safe hands.
Okay. Honorable Maangi, close it in 30 seconds.
Linda, my friend, my learned colleague, Farah Maalim has made my day this morning. He has accepted that there's nothing wrong with the bottom-up policy, only that they don't like the messenger. They don't like Ruto. So if
nobody trusts.
Okay, you don't trust the messenger. That's what I've been saying, that the policy is okay, but they don't like the messenger.
But, if you don't like the messenger, Deputy DG, please make your case. Don't allow us to come and help you out after 4 years. We can, when we help you out after 4 years, it actually means we are still better than you. And you want to lead the country when we can't allow you to lead